Welcome to the channel, everyone. This video I'm going to do a little experiment with different mixing ratios on plastic filler, and we're just going to call it Bondo. But what I see guys doing, everybody mixes it a little bit different, and it's really not that critical that it has to be mixed to an exact proportion, because you get a can of Bondo and you get a tube of hardener, and if you mix it right, they should both be about empty at the same time. And I see a lot of guys will mix it and they'll get 3/4 through their can of Bondo and they're already out of hardener. And I've never seen any issue with stuff coming back, either mixing it too heavy or too light. But I wanted to see what happens, so I made up a little thing here to test it on, and I'll show you that in a second. But I'm going to mix Bondo in 4 different ways. I've got 4 equal parts sitting here. And the first one, I've got the hardener, which I think is the correct amount for the temperature. The next one is going to be about 50% of that hardener. The third one will be about 50% more hardener. And then the fourth one I'm going to do is it should be the correct amount of hardener. But what I see guys do in the winter, and here in Northwest Indiana, if it's 10 degrees or 0 outside, usually the shops are 65, 68 degrees. And guys will grab their propane torch and they'll wave over it. So what I'm going to do is mix all these up individually, put them on some test panels. I'm going to let them dry for 24 hours. And then I'm going to bend them and see if there's a difference where they crack, where if it loses adhesion. Now, I don't really expect any dramatic results out of this, but I thought, I just want to see what happens when it's mixed in different ratios. And if the Bondo was that critical that it had to be mixed precise, it'd be in a 2-part gun, like adhesives and panel bonding adhesive, stuff like that. But it's a pretty broad range you can do. So these will all be mixed in the same temperature, and it's about 75, 77 degrees right now. So I just want to see, and I'm going to mix these up, let them sit for probably 24 hours, and then I'll come back tomorrow and we'll bend them and see what happens. So let me show you what I made. Okay, I've got 4 equal parts of the filler. This one here, I just marked this one as a 0, and that's going to be what I feel is the correct amount of hardener for the filler. The next one is a minus, which is going to be 50% less hardener. Third one is going to be a plus, and that's 50% additional hardener. And the last one is probably the correct amount of hardener, and I'm going to take this one and take a propane torch and wave over it to heat it up. And what I did, I'm going to mix these individually. I'm going to clean up the putty knife and everything, my spreader, so it's not contaminated from one mixture to the other. And I cut an applicator here with a notch on it, so when I put this filler on these 4 pieces of sheet metal, it's almost like a notched trowel, so I get the correct coverage. Now I've got 4 pieces of sheet metal here. They've been sanded with 80 grit. Took the E-coat and everything off. There may be just a trace on all of them. They're all even. I didn't use any solvents on them. I just blew them off the air hose. I didn't put my fingerprints on there. So I'll put some rubber gloves on. I'll mix these up one at a time. Once they sit for 24 hours, then what I made, I've got this board here that I made up with an old paint can screwed to it and a block of wood. I cut a slot. I don't want to handle the sheet metal right now, but what it'll do, I'll have the filler material, the Bondo, on the metal, and it'll fit down into this slot, and I'll bend it around this paint can, and I'll just see, and I've just made a scale here from 1 to 8. It doesn't really correspond with anything, but that way I could keep track of the numbers. And I want to see, is there a difference in breaking point from where the Bondo cracks, and also if it starts to lose adhesion from the sheet metal. Now, when Bondo, you repair a panel, if it gets wrecked later, it's going to crack, it's going to come loose. That happens. Like I said, I don't expect any dramatic results, but I just want to see if there's a difference in any of these numbers here, or these panels, on how they flex and crack and lose adhesion just on a different mix ratio. So I'm going to start mixing this up and we'll go from there. Okay, there's the first one. Number 2. All right, I'm gonna let those 4 panels dry until tomorrow. So probably 24 hours. I'll come back, we'll put them in here, bend them and see what happens. So it's the next morning. I'm gonna start by bending these and see how they perform. I'm gonna start with the first one, marked 0, which is just a normal amount of hardener. So let's see what happens. Okay, this one actually cracked right at the end on number 1. So I'm going to continue and see what it does once we get a little bit farther into this bend. Okay, actually the Bondo is staying intact. It's just delaminating right off the metal, which is actually surprising. I can just take and roll it all the way around. Okay, it never cracked anywhere else. It just came right off the steel. So I'm going to write that down on a board and we'll go to the next one. Okay, this one here is the one that's mixed with about 50% less hardener. Okay, that one cracked right off the bat at number 1 also. And once again, you can roll it all the way around. The Bondo doesn't crack really anymore. It just delaminates. Okay, let me write that down. We'll move to the next one. Okay, this panel has about 50% extra hardener in it. This one actually broke at the same point, but it delaminated all the way up to here already. It snapped initially, and then I could see it delaminate quite a bit past what the other two did. Okay, after that, it all stayed intact. Okay, this is the final one. This is the one that I took the propane torch and heated it up a little bit. Once again, they all broke at the same point, and this one did delaminate a little bit farther than the first two, but about equal to the third one. This one actually delaminated quicker than any other ones. Okay, like I initially said, I wasn't really looking for any drastic differences in all these. But one thing that I did notice, the one that was mixed with a normal amount of hardener and a little bit less hardener, 50% less, broke in the same spot, but they didn't delaminate until it got bent right around this radius here. The one with extra hardener, 50% extra, and the one that was heated up with the propane torch, and that was mixed with the normal amount of hardener, they broke in the same spot, but they delaminated farther along the line. They delaminated a little bit easier. So either way, I don't think it's an issue on how the Bondo is being mixed according to your temperature, your air temperature in your shop. You know, we'll mix Bondo up here, and well, like I said, I'm in Northwest Indiana. In the winter when it's cold, you're going to put a little bit more hardener in your Bondo. And you get that first warm day in spring when it hits 80 degrees, and all of a sudden you're mixing it the same, and you find out that it's dried before you can get it put on the panel in time. So you'll start cutting it down then. So it's really no, an exact amount of hardener that you have to use. It varies on temperature. But this experiment, I just wanted to see with given the same temperature if there's any difference in these, and there was a little bit of difference in two of them as opposed to the other two, but not enough to make any difference in my mind that you're going to have problems down the road where it's coming off, peeling off. And if it's been in a collision, and that's a pretty tight bend right there, it's going to come off regardless. So like I said, I wasn't really expecting any results or dramatic differences here, but I just wanted to see what would happen and just do a little test here. So actually, I really don't see any point in testing one brand of Bondo over another. They're all fairly similar. They use the same components, probably a little different mix ratios and stuff in their formula. But whatever you're using, you just try and get the required amount for your temperature and you won't have any trouble. If you go way overboard maybe with the hardener, and that's what I'm thinking, it seemed to be more brittle with extra hardener and heating up the torch because they shorten the drying time. So I don't know if that makes it a little bit brittle, but I don't think it's an issue where it's going to come off a panel down the road for no reason other than if you didn't have good adhesion or didn't have a clean surface. So yeah, as far as I can tell, however you're mixing it should be fine. Like I said, usually strive to use one tube of hardener per can of Bondo and not, halfway through your can of Bondo you're getting another tube of hardener because you're used it up already. So mix it in proportion, and I don't really see any big difference here. So I hope this was somewhat entertaining. So thanks for watching.